Okay, so this is a full tutorial on the BLOFin Exchange, which is a cryptocurrency exchange where you can actually use leverage. And so I want to go over the full suite of features and make sure you guys understand how to use this BLOFin Exchange in its entirety so that you guys have somewhat of a grasp on you are comfortable using leverage. But first, got to figure out how to get the money into these accounts and understand the difference between your funding account, your spot account, and your futures account. But I just want to get you guys comfortable with using BLOFin. So you can find these accounts not only here on the overview page once you guys set up your account, which is going to blofin.com. I will leave a link down below if you guys want to use this platform just so it's easy to find. Okay, so you can find all the different accounts here as well, but I just want to make sure you guys understand there's 3 separate accounts and you're going to have to know how to use them for different specific reasons. So once you are on your overview page, you want to go into your funding account so that you can get the deposit address so that you can send whatever asset you're going to send to this platform, because you're going to need USDT in order to use leverage. So in order to do that, you can either send USDT here into your funding account, which I don't recommend because it's a little bit more pricey. It's a little bit more cumbersome. It takes a while to get here. So I wouldn't recommend using USDT because they don't allow you to use. So in order to get some funds into your account, I would recommend something like Solana, XRP, XLM. So send one of those into your BLOFin account, and that way you can get stuff over here a little bit quicker and a little bit cheaper. So that being said, first account you're going to use is the funding account, right? So you're going to come into here and you're going to want to deposit whatever coin it is that you're going to be sending over. And so right now I've already sent the Solana over, but just so that you know how to do it yourself. So imagine there's no money in here. There's no Solana. Okay. You're going to select Solana by depositing. Okay. Click the deposit button. This is where, you can either, first you want to select the network. Of course, it's Solana. Now, if you have mobile, you can either scan this barcode to get the account address to send it to, or you can just copy it here, go to your Coinbase account, select Solana, select withdrawal, paste this into the section, and then go ahead and send your funds over to BLOFin. So once your funds are in the funding account, right? So let's go back to funding. You can find it here in this drop down. So I'm going to go back to the funding account. Now you're going to need USDT, like I mentioned earlier in the video. Click the transfer button, and then you're going to want to send it to your spot account. Okay, and you're going to go ahead and press this all button. So I have $100 in here just for an example. Go ahead and click confirm. And now that it's in your spot account, you can come over to this toolbar on the top here and select spot, and then go ahead and select Solana from the drop down box. You can type it in the search bar and make sure you're selecting the spot down here. Okay, so now I'm going to select Solana, and then I'm going to go ahead and click and select sell over here on the right hand side. I would go to market just so you can get an immediate sell. And I'm just going to put 100% of whatever I have. Again, I'm just doing this as an example, and then go ahead and sell. So you're essentially just swapping out Solana for USDT. All right, now we have it in our spot account, right? So now let's go into this drop down box and go into our spot. Okay, now we have our $100 of USDT. What you're going to do now that you have your USDT, right? We just swapped out Solana for USDT. And now you can go over to transfer one more time. And this time, by the way, if you click this middle button, you can swap these 2 accounts, one for another. So right now we have our funds in the spot account, and now we want to send it to our futures account. So I'm going to select all because I'm going to send that $100. So now that you have all your money, so now I have the full amount of money in my futures account. And now I'm going to go over to the futures tab here in the toolbar, and then I'm going to click on futures. Okay, so the interface looks identical to the spot interface, right? And you have the same controls, you have the same UI as you would see on TradingView or any other exchange. You have your time frames, you have all the different indicators that you want to use here. You have your drawing tools here on the left-hand side, and you have your indicators down here on the bottom. You can double click the screen to get rid of them, and then double click to bring them back if you want. You have your order block here on the right-hand side. These are all the buys, these are all the sells, and this is the current price of what is Bitcoin. Okay, and so it defaults to Bitcoin right off the bat. And it looks like Bitcoin's having a little bit of recovery after that dump earlier today. Today is the 14th of April, 2025. And it's been a very volatile market the last few days. And so it's been interesting to trade futures, to say the least. And so with the volatility, you can make a good amount of money on the way up and on the way down with futures. And this is why I want to do this tutorial, so you guys can be comfortable with platforms like this. There are several platforms that you can use. Almost the majority of them have these features. But again, in the United States, there are far few in between, unless you're using something like a DeFi platform like GMX or Hyperliquid, which is I'll be doing in a separate video. But for those of you that have access to something like this, there are more features here that I like. And the transaction is a little bit quicker because you're not having to connect your wallet like on GMX. It's a little slower because you got to use your MetaMask, and that's a whole other beast. And all you have to use is USDT. Here you can see your full balance here. So since I sent a little bit of money here early in the week, I've been messing around with these different features on this platform. I have some loaded already. So all that being said, you're going to need to understand how to use some of these buttons on here on the right hand side. The first thing you're going to want to know and understand is what is the difference between isolated and cross. And this is very important to know and understand if you want to leverage trade. Now, I want you to imagine, say you have a bunch of money of different assets here on this platform. You have some BNB, you have $1,000 of XLM, you have some HBAR. Say you have $20,000 worth of assets here. And what Cross will do, Cross will allow the platform to dig into those other funds if you're losing, right? If you're on big leverage and you bet that the market's going to short, meaning it's going to dip down, it doesn't, it goes the other way, and you're starting to bleed out, right? Instead of liquidating the amount of collateral, it'll go and dip into your other funds to grab money out of there so you can keep your trade alive. You don't necessarily want to do that, right? You don't necessarily want it to continue to ride that out, right? While it's going in the opposite direction that you guessed. And that's why I always suggest using isolated. Isolated means that you're just using the amount of money that you use for collateral. So I'll show you what collateral means here in a second. Market just essentially betting on the current price. You're entering at the current price. Limit is you predicting, okay, I want to go ahead and enter up here. You can put a price in the future using limit. We're not going to get that complicated right now. So we're going to use market. Okay, every time we're going to use market, and then you're going to use the amount of collateral, which is you can use as much as you want in your account in USDT. Let's just choose like $300 for collateral. The next thing you have to understand is how much leverage you want to use. So leverage essentially just means a multiple of whatever your collateral is. If your collateral is $300 and I say I want a 2x, that just means that you're borrowing 2 times the money that you have. So that makes your leverage trade $600, right? If you do 3x, that's 900. If I do something like 10x, right? 10x will get me $3,000 worth of leverage. You're borrowing money, and that makes my trade a lot more either profitable or easier to lose money, just depending on how much collateral you have. You're only allowed to lose $300, right? So that's the collateral. It's like you're putting it up just in case the trade goes the opposite direction. Now, there are safety measures. You can always use stop losses, and we'll go over that in a second. But just know with Bitcoin, it's letting you go all the way up to 50x leverage. So let's talk about that. Let's do 20x leverage, right? 20x leverage would give you 12 grand, right? So I'm going to hit confirm here, right? So now the good thing about leverage is that if you don't have a lot of money, you can borrow money. Right now I have 12 grand that I could leverage, and I could put on any kind of entry. So if I wanted to enter now, I could go long or I can go short. So essentially going long just means that you're betting that the price is going to go up, and going short, you're betting the price is going to go down. How much leverage? 20x? 20. Okay, so 20 times 300. So it's $9,000. Okay, so $9,000. Okay, is what you're borrowing with 20x leverage with $300 as your collateral. So you're multiplying 300 times 20, which is 9,000. So now you can bet either way. So let's just say you're going to bet that, okay, when it hits this point, it's going to probably come down. Okay, just hypothetically speaking, now I want to go short. So I want to bet my $12,000 that this is going to go down, right? First, I want to show you this feature, which is your take profit or your stop loss, right? So if you want to take profit on a short, you're going to bet that it's going to come down, right? So say if I wanted to bet that it's going to come down to this trend line right here, which is at 83,421. Okay, and so that would get me, and you can see the amount, it'll give you the amount you would make if it were to come down to that point, right? So if it comes down to that point, you make $165 just down to this little trend line right here. And then your stop loss, say you want your stop loss to be up here, right? Because everything's in reverse when you're shorting, right? You're betting something's coming down. You don't want it to go up, right? So I want my stop loss to be somewhere around 60, what does that say? 86, 159. And so that would be a loss of $108, if I'm reading that correctly. Is that a good risk to reward ratio? I don't think so. I wouldn't take this bet right now. I don't put any bets or place any orders when something is in between two trend lines, right? You want to always put an order, either if you're going to long, you want to put an order when it's hitting a support line, because you want it to at least go from this distance to distance, right? And if you're going to short, you always want to short on a resistance line, which it would be this one right here. That's where you would want to put in the short, right? But again, I'm doing this live. I wasn't waiting for the perfect storm to do this, but that's what you would do. You would want to short up here, and then you would say, this is where my take profit would be. And then you would put your stop loss. You would try and find a wick somewhere, but most likely you want to put it just above this line. That would be your stop loss. But this is how you would set it up. Okay. And then you would go ahead and click sell short. So at least you have your numbers. It gives you your parameters, how much you would make. And then if you were to get stopped out, how much you would lose. So you always want more of optimally like a 5-to-1 ratio, right? You make $500 if it goes in the direction you're betting, or you lose $100 if you get stopped out. You want a 5-to-1 ratio. 3-to-1's okay, but 5-to-1 is what I prefer to get into. And it's normally works out that way if you bet in between trend lines. Again, you short from this trend line or you go long from this trend line. And it doesn't really matter. Almost any line, any Fibonacci line would do that for you. Optimally, you always want to get in on a 786 or 618 level, which is the second or third line here from the bottom of a fib, right? This is not the most optimal place to be betting, right? Unless it hits this top here, then more than likely it's a good shorting opportunity. If I were to go in now, if I had to pick, I would most likely would rather short, betting that the market isn't going to break this trend line. Now, again, you'd have to look at some more macro picture. You'd have to look more at the daily and get a sense of where you're at. For the most part, it looks like we're underneath the 60 MA. So, there's a lot of other things I would look at before entering something like this, but these are all just hypothetical scenarios. I just wanted to show you how to use the features here on the right-hand side. Now, you're going to spend $4 to $7, depending on how big your allocation is. If you're putting in $20,000 when you put the leverage all together, you might be spending $7 to $10 for each buy and sell. If you're making something smaller, under $10,000, probably somewhere around $4 to $5 per, right? So I'm not going to waste money doing that, but I just want to show you how to use these features and to let you know that the cool thing about BLOFin is it's going to have this little box, this tiny box. You'll see it once you put a bet in. There'll be a little blue and a little orange section, but the blue section is going to tell you how much you're up or down. It'll say -10 or +10. And that way, there's a little X button there and you can actually select it and it'll essentially close the trade out and you can just get out really quickly. And also there's a reverse button here, right? If you see the trend going in the opposite direction, then you can click the reverse button, which would be on the far left side of that. There's like a floating bar here, right? And you can select that and it'll go the other direction, just depending on which way you were going to begin with. And I think that's a pretty cool feature. And then of course down here, it's going to give you all your stats, your whole position history, and you're going to be able to open it up and you could actually view all if you wanted to, and you can print out that PDF to see your win rate or loss rate and track your trades to see how well you're doing and whether you should probably size down or size up depending on how much money you're losing. Either way, again, you could always set your stop loss, so it doesn't matter. You don't have to lose the $300 as you saw in this scenario. I have a stop loss here, and the most I could lose on this, now it's at 117, right? So the worst I could lose is 117, and I'm trying to hit 172 is what that's saying. So essentially that's telling me there's a longer way down than there is up. So again, I wouldn't take this trade. You always want to trade against either a resistance or a support line. Never go into a trade when it's floating in the middle here. I don't do that. Okay, that's not something that I recommend ever. So this would not be a good place to put in an order. I'm just showing you. So that is it mostly from top to bottom as far as the basics go. Now, if you want to learn more about trading, you guys want to learn how to do this more in detail inside of my Telegram, I'll be leaving all the links down below. Right now, since September, my win rate is at 83%. Okay, so I am pretty accurate. I mostly focus on meme coins right now, but I've been using these platforms to trade altcoins, and I'm using the same strategy, the same methodology, and my win rate is just as high. So check out the Telegram, get in there right now. It's free. I'm probably going to be charging a premium here in the near future because my win rate is too high to be giving this stuff out for free. So I appreciate you guys sitting around and listening to this. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you have not done so. Check out all my links. I have a Memecoin Academy. I've had a few hundred people take it already. I have 5 stars there. So check that out as well.